name is Nadia Aristide. I am the Managing Finance Director of the Haitian American Caucus-US. The Haitian American Caucus-US is a grassroots movement of professionals whose mission is to provide underserved communities with access to information and resources that will foster self-development and success. Our goal is to improve the visibility and reputation of minorities while living in the United States of America. We are dedicated to educating our community by providing essential tools that will help foster success in their personal and professional lives. We do this by focusing on key areas: education, health and wellness, business and economic development, the Gibbs J. Serafin Workforce Development Program. We are excited about building a better community with you. We have launched our new membership program today. Please join us at www.hackglobal.org. And also join us on all our social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you may see us. And thanks for watching.
Oh, I'm on. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everybody. We're getting this program underway, part 2 of the discussion centered around the Brianna Taylor case. We have some great guests, an esteemed panel that will be on to offer their perspective. My name is Jennings Lewis. I am the advocacy chair of the Haitian American Caucus. I will be joined by our co-moderator, the great Pierre. But to get everything going, we do want to have a conversation and introduce y'all to our music sponsor of the day, the great Jackson Sherry, and he will have some updates of what he's been doing in the community, what Common Artists is doing as a music entity, and share his perspective also on the things happening in today's country, especially around the Brianna Taylor case. So I would like to introduce, wait a minute, I think I'm having issues. What? Okay, we're back. I guess we were having some technical issues. Um, our esteemed Reverend will jump in and share some words for us to get the program started. How are you today, Reverend?
I'm great. I'm wonderful. Can't complain. Thank God for another day. It's truly a blessing and honor to share this conversation again as we continue to fight for justice on all fronts, not just regarding Brianna Taylor, but so many other issues that we face as a people in regards to police brutality and fighting for civil rights. We've been doing it for the last 400 years. So we continue to be able to stay on the battlefield because that's what we do. We've been fighting before Christ, and seems like we're gonna be fighting after Christ.
Okay. That hit a nerve. So I wasn't a part of the first conversation that we had with our audience and our viewership. Before we transition into part two, I'd like to discuss a little bit of a recap of what we discussed last week, just to give our viewers some basic understanding of where we are, and then we transition into what we need to do collectively as a community moving forward.
So in the beginning, we recapped just over the conversation in regards to Brianna Taylor about what actually transpired during the process of the family, and also the children and the lawyers who are involved receiving a $12 million settlement in 1 week, and then the following week, after the case was still being investigated and people were still being interviewed, the Attorney General of Kentucky, Daniel Cameron, announced that there was not going to be any charges facing for the death of Brianna Taylor for any officer. In fact, one officer is going to be charged with wanton endangerment regarding the weapon, the firing of the weapon that he used in the bullets that went into a neighbor's house, which is downstairs, not even the other family, which was an African American upstairs. So Brianna Taylor's name was not even mentioned at all. And we began to have a conversation in terms of what to do, why we think that happened, and what should have not happened, and how can we prevent it from happening moving forward.
Okay. You stated a lot of important facts that do a bit of a deeper dive past just the headline, because one thing me and Sam discussed throughout the week in preparation for this conversation, we do need a deep understanding of the laws in order to understand how to change the circumstances. Our generation of millennials and the Gen Zers, they've taken an active role in making their voices heard, but at the same time, people like yourself who've been doing this work for decades, our panelists who are well versed on this subject, we need to have an understanding how to systematically break down the system in order to avoid this from taking place moving forward. So now that the facts are already out, officers are not going to be charged with the murder of our sister, Brianna Taylor. What do you and the rest of our panelists think steps we can take in terms of this specific situation moving forward? Because our young people are still outside protesting and mobilizing for justice on behalf of Brianna Taylor and her family.
Well, this is, I've never been in a fight where you have to continue to fight for justice, even if you get a cop arrested when they kill an unarmed African American, whether it be a man or a boy. You still have to make sure that the law is changed so it won't happen to begin. But in this particular case, stuff is still unfolding. You had the grand jury, the attorney general did not want to be able to release the indictment and release the grand jury minutes because of the investigation, quote unquote, that the Department of Justice and the FBI is doing. But they had a juror who filed for a motion, and that juror was able to put the pressure on a judge to get the minutes recordings released. And that was released. And this week also, it was a video that was released as well that shows contradiction about what Attorney General Daniel Kramer said at the press conference. So you have Attorney General who somewhat lied about the conversation of what transpired, and now he's putting pressure on a judge to be able to file motions so he won't even the rest of the information and the jurors' information won't be released. But my perspective is that I already knew the information that should have been presented to show that Brianna Taylor boyfriend had every right to defend himself and defend his family because he didn't know who was coming to his house. So that information that was privy to me releasing the grand jury minutes, we already knew. We knew going in that Daniel Cameron was a racist. We knew that Daniel Cameron was married to the granddaughter of Mitch McConnell. We knew from past practices that he was a Republican in a Democratic state in Kentucky that did not have justice for any cases that happened in Kentucky. So we knew that going in. So I think that what the people should have done was did some more action items, maybe plan a boycott in the state of Kentucky, in Louisville, just for a week, because our attention span is not that long. We can't say for a month and 2 months, but at least a week, so you can at least in that 1 week, you can go back and say, hey, we did this for a week. We made an impact. Because what they respect is the power of the people, the masses of the people, the media, and they respect financial resources. And if you have those four things and you make an impact in those things, then you can be able to make stuff happen in our city and in our country. So you have to be able to have action items to go with conversation and to go with protests and have a plan and not just make speeches that can just go viral.
Well said. Well said. Sam Pierre.
What's going on, everybody? How's everybody doing?
Join us.
How's everybody doing? I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. I see you, my man Rev. We're on here having this conversation. I'm really excited about this. And to add some more to what's going on, I want to introduce some of our other guests. So first we have Keyonte Sutherland, who so graciously was with us last Saturday for part one. And we're really excited to have her. We also have Benjamin Pinczweski, who's also here. And I'm excited, right? We got Big Ben in the building who's going to talk to us about, his thoughts on what he thinks. And last but not least, we have Attorney Lee Hutton as well, who's here, who's going to also discuss what's going on with everything. And I'm just excited about this conversation. I think for a lot of times people don't get a chance to hear exactly what happened on a case from the legal side, also from the social justice side, and then also from the community side. So I think this is really good to have a panel of attorneys who are here from EEP, who is our legal sponsor for the workshop today. And I think it's really, really exciting. So Jennings, you had asked a question earlier to Rev McCall, and I kind of wanted to piggyback off that question and open it up to Keyonte, Ben, and Lee, so that we could hear some more perspectives. So if you could ask the question again, Jennings, and then let's open up to our panel.
So the question was, since we already know the facts, a decision's already been made to not charge the officers with murder, what are some of the next steps we can take for this case in particular? Because a lot of our young people are still out mobilizing, fighting for justice for Brianna Taylor and her family.
Well, I do think there still is an opportunity, although the Rev was correct in putting it in quotes, that the Justice Department is doing an investigation into this, and they can bring a federal claim and a federal indictment against the police officers. And I think if there is enough noise made, if there are enough protests, if more of the cover-up gets put into the public arena, we have a better opportunity for that. However, just like the Rev put in quotes, I don't have faith in Attorney General Barr or the Trump administration to pursue this, because they're running on a platform of law and order. It's unfortunate, though, the law and order doesn't apply to the African American community when they're in confrontations with the police. But all areas for investigation have not been exhausted. And I'm sure that Lee can go into that in even greater detail from his perspective of having done it so often.
Absolutely. Hi, my name is Lee Hutton. I'm with EEP in the Minneapolis office, managing partner. The circumstances with the next steps, there's a lot of opportunities. You have the DOJ, and just for the audience to get an understanding of why there can be a decision at one level and then more action in another level, and that's important to understand. So you have state causes of action, which the Attorney General tried to pursue through his own grand jury indictment. Now, for your understanding, a grand jury indictment is not a collection of evidence from both sides. It really is only one particular individual or the state on behalf through the Attorney General introducing the evidence that he wanted to introduce to, in essence, to get his type of conviction that he wanted. Now, of course, through the investigation and through one of the jurors that decided that the evidence that they received was not genuine, and this is now we're seeing this information being released that is raising significant concerns of racial inequity, which is something we all understood. So that's the state level. Then you have a federal level, which is kind of a separate and the ability to bring new charges or different charges in the investigation, and we'll see how that plays out. So I don't think this saga is over with. Now, from the social level, I do think that the next step is a continued effort to bring recognition that of this racial equality. We need to continue to mobilize. We need to continue to kind of know our rights. We need to continue to work cohesively with getting with lawyers, getting with social activists, calling people like Reverend McCall. EEP is always willing to sit down with anyone to determine if their rights have been violated. And this is kind of a constant effort to make sure that we keep the narrative going until racial inequality is actual racial equality in the United States going forward. So we have a lot of work to do.
Well, I also want to point out what the Rev said about the economic impact. And I'm old enough to remember the civil rights movement in the 1960s. And one of the most significant things was the desegregation of the buses in the South. And everyone remembers Rosa Parks, and everyone remembers the boycott. But it was the boycott, it was the economic impact of the boycott, because they woke up in the South and they said, wait a second, the people who are riding the buses are the African Americans. And if they don't ride the buses, there's no income coming in. No one's going to get paid. The buses won't run. And all of a sudden, the South was willing to desegregate the buses and treat people like human beings. And unfortunately, it was the power of the mighty dollar which brought them to their knees. And the Reverend makes a very, very important point. That's truly what America understands. When you take something out of their pocket. That's why the tax argument is always so resonant. You have an economic impact, they feel it, and then they'll take action.
Well said. The great Keyonte Sutherland, what's your take on what we can do moving forward?
So in addition, I mean, my partners on the panel have kind of already said most of what we can do, but I think what's important to just take note of is that even if there were charges brought in this case, it doesn't mean that we've made it. It doesn't mean that the fight is over. It doesn't mean that, unfortunately, that this will not happen again. I think the next steps for, Attorney Hutton, he spoke about legally what can happen, but we as a people, everyone in the Brooklyn community, for instance, can't necessarily take those legal steps. So what can we do? And I think that goes with just staying informed, doing things like being a part of, the Haitian American Caucus so that you can go to workshops similar to the one that you are watching today, making sure that you continue to have these conversations, making sure that you continue to question things that happen and not just take them for face value. So just because someone says, well, this is the law or this is how it should be, it doesn't mean that you should not question that. And we should never stop fighting, and we should never stop questioning, and we should never stop learning. And that goes for everyone. It doesn't matter, what career you're in or, how much you think you already know or understand about a situation. You should always be seeking more information, because information and lack thereof is how the man holds others back. I hate to go back to, let's say, slavery. There was a reason why they didn't want the slaves to be able to learn to read and write, because that lack of information is a lack of power. When you know your rights and when you know what should be happening and when you know that something doesn't really smell right or sound right, and you can question that, you have power, because then people have to answer to you. And we just need to make sure that we continue moving forward in a way that people are forced to answer for their actions. So yes, this isn't over. And as I said, even if we had, quote unquote, gotten the results that we wanted, which we obviously, we have not in this situation, but even if we did, it doesn't mean that we should stop fighting and stop questioning and stop demanding. Because once we stop questioning and demanding, we've lost the battle.
All right. Well, I mean, that's huge. I think that's so important. Jennings and myself, we actually this week we were having conversations to prepare for this conversation, and one of the things that we were going back and forth about was the shooting, right? And we would love to hear from everyone here. If Brianna Taylor's boyfriend did not shoot first, do you think the outcome of the situation would be the same? And I open that up to anyone.
I think the
Absolutely. Absolutely. Both of them would have been dead. We would have been planning 2 funerals. The police have a mechanism all over this country where they are trained to shoot to kill. Mm-hmm. They don't have where they come and be respectful. They said they, quote unquote, they wanted to be respectful by announcing themselves. There's many times and many accidents, incidents that they don't announce themselves, that they plan to shoot to kill. When they hear of different neighborhoods they come to, different places that they go, they have in their mindset that, I'm going to fire my weapon. And I'm that unfortunately.
But Rev, what if the music was on? What if there was loud music, right? And I'm just asking. Just for what if there's loud music?
It still doesn't give them right to pull out the weapon. That's why you have a taser. And these are mechanisms that you don't even have to use. You can, as an officer, There's something that starts with a
Right.
C.
But
It's
how would
called
you use the
courtesy.
taser, Rev,
So you
if
can talk to
you're
them.
all the way in the front and the person's in the bedroom?
If you have a flashlight, you can open the door. Hello, police, anyone here? Hello. That's how you do it. You identify yourself as a police officer and you say something, but they didn't say anything. They were witnesses that said that they did not announce themselves. Most of the time, police do not announce themselves. We feel as a people that we always have to be able to respect the police, but the police do not respect us in terms of using a proper protocol and procedure when you are approaching us. The approach is always the problem that starts the problem. It's always the problem. It's about approachment. If you approach someone in a difficult manner, then their manner is going to be different. So you have to be able to understand the connect. Mind you, we have been on a forefront of different issues and different problems with the police department across the country. So when a person sees a police officer, automatically they thinking negative. It's not a positive reaction that a person is going to feel. You see, you roll up, the police come behind you driving your car. Oh shoot, you ain't even in trouble. You don't got nothing in your car. But the first thing come to your mind is a negative thought, and that's because the police created that culture.
So
in there, sorry, Lee, but you know, I think it's a fair question, right? Because I'm sure it's a question that many people have. Well, what if? But the problem is, we shouldn't even be asking that question. Like, we shouldn't even have to think about what if that didn't happen, because at the end of the day, the fact remains that the way that police respond when they know they are going into someone's house who is a minority, and the way the police respond when they go into someone's house when they are not a minority is different. The aggression and the shoot first, ask questions later is something that I'm not going to say only, and I don't know the percentage, but I will tell you it's probably close to 90% or more happens when you are going into Black, brown, Hispanic, whatever it may be, a non-white home, a non-white neighborhood. The aggression of the police is just different. Now, in this case, let's go back to the warrant, because you want to talk about, well, what if he didn't, with his legal and lawful gun, fire his weapon? But let's go back to the warrant. The warrant and the person at issue did not live in the home in which they were going to. And the cops that came that night were aware of this. They were aware that the person of interest did not live here. Allegedly, there was a package that was delivered to this home. So you're already going into a home knowing that the person who you are attempting to invest, or that you are investigating, does not live there, and that it is a Black female with no criminal history. You have no reason to believe that, she's armed or dangerous. Why would you then come with your weapons so quickly to be drawn? Like, why is it that knowing who lives in the house, knowing that she has no criminal record, knowing that she's not a dangerous person, you have no reason to feel that she's dangerous and armed, you are so ready and willing to just fire 36 rounds into the home? That's the question that we should be asking. That's the question that we should have answered. Not, why did someone fire the weapon when it's 12 o'clock in the morning and he has no reason to think that someone's entering the home other than to rob him or do something bad, because 12 o'clock in the morning, someone's entering my home and I don't expect them. I'm not thinking something good. And he's in his right to think that something negative was going to be happening at 12 a.m. when, people are banging, whatever ruckus is going on is unexpected, and it's 12 o'clock in the morning.
So
we're also not looking at, there was no basis for this warrant. There was no basis for a no-knock warrant. And again, I have to go over what the Rev said. There was such a rush to get this case settled, to get the money paid so that the investigation would stop. You're learning every day more and more about the misconduct in the execution of the warrant. the signing of the warrant, the fact that this judge rubber stamped so many warrants like this, the fact that it was a no-knock warrant, and all of a sudden in Kentucky now, you can't do no-knock warrants. But the truth is, Sam, have you watched TV? Have you seen when the police go to a house where they suspect criminal activity is taking place, and it happens to be in a White House in the suburbs? They have bullhorns, and they announce, "We're the police. We have your house surrounded. Come out with your hands up, or we're coming in to break it up." Now that the grand jury testimony has been released, you hear that they allegedly announced themselves, and it's only been heard by one person for a total of 30 seconds before they broke in. 30 seconds before they broke in. Now, if you're asleep in your bed and somebody's knocking on your door, you might not hear it, especially if you're someone that sleeps like me. And all of a sudden, they're in your house at 12 o'clock, like Key said. What do you think? What are you supposed to think? This would never happen if the police had behaved properly. And part of the problem that we have, as we all know, is that this keeps happening. It happens all the time. When I was preparing myself for the discussion today, I was thinking about Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, shot while jogging, a police cover-up, the situation that happened with Laquan McDonald in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, a Clinton person, a Democratic mayor of Chicago, engaged in a massive cover-up. They keep doing this to protect the police. They keep doing this because justice of the victims doesn't seem to count or matter in America. That's what we need to do.
Wow, you said something deep. You said go ahead, Lee. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to extend to it because, and I'll keep it short. This is a macro and a micro issue. The macro is that the United States of America has had a terrible blemish when it comes to their perception of Black people. When there is a movie, a propaganda called A Birth of the Nation to scare people of what Black people will do to them if they're let wild. And that gets ingrained to the micro understanding of police, where when they go into these departments and they go into homes of people of color, they have the conclusion that they're guilty and they're going to find evidence. And if they don't find evidence, they're going to plant evidence. And it just circles around to the macro and the micro. And what we have to do from a social and attorneys is to not just take justice, not to demand justice, is to mobilize and ensure justice. And what that means is it's fine to get paid money, but we have to get convictions of police officers. They have to know that when they don't have the people of all races in an equal mind, that they will go to prison and they will get the fullest extent of the law. And so this is not demanding justice. This is not asking for it. This is ensuring it.
Wow. So we talked about protecting the police, right? And Ben mentioned that protecting of the police and how that protection is important, right? So do you believe, right? And this is just me asking for people who are thinking out there, why would the people that were voting into office, you mentioned the mayor of Chicago, why would they have the need to protect the police over the people that voted them to come into office?
Well, you know, Sam, I really think in this particular situation, I bring a unique perspective to this. Right. Because, you know, as we discussed when you invited me to join the panel, you wanted to add a little color to it. So that's one of the reasons that I'm here. But for everyone can see that, obviously, I'm Caucasian. This has been an issue. No greater issue has driven people out to vote than the Republicans for the last 50 plus years, preying upon white people's fear of the Black man, just like Lee said. This was Nixon's Southern strategy. Ronald Reagan kicked off his campaign in Mississippi because he said he wanted to talk about states' rights. No one wants to talk about states' rights. We all know that that's code for what we need to do about the issue of the Black men that are preying upon our communities. That's what gets white people out to vote, Sam. That's what gets white people excited. Somebody needs to tell it like it is and tell the truth. And nearly every Republican that has runs on this law and order theme. They run on people's fear. They run on people's hostilities and aggression and racism. Race is the issue that ignites white America. You have to face it. You have to have a reckoning with it, and we have to address it. And now you have a president who has made it okay to be a racist. You have a president who took away all the undercover code and everything else that was this facade that we pretended that we were an equal society and we had gotten past the issue of race. He's brought it out front and center. And that's why the police are protected, because they've turned into a militaristic organization at this point, and the training is terrible. Everything needs to be changed before you can get any kind of justice in America. And also, it begins with voting. Vote these people out of office because they're not serving your interests.
Wow. Rev, you want to add anything to that?
He's on mute.
Can't hear you, Rev.
You're on mute, Rev.
At the end of the day, the power is in the people. When you elect someone to office, you are, if that's your candidate, that's somebody you believe in, you are believing in that person, and you hoping that and praying that that candidate would do for the people. But unfortunately, when these individuals get elected to office, they go along to get along. They get with the status quo. They think that they have to be able to go with the people who are actually their colleagues, and they vote on things that they normally wouldn't vote for. But because my colleague is putting pressure on me, and I have a race coming up, and I need union endorsements, this all plays a factor about having power and being an elected official. So they have these things going on. That's why it's important to be able to elect someone that is not going to be persuaded by the status quo, but make sure that they will stay in the race, and they will be the same as if they was elected and when they are not elected. And that's the make so. And if they are not doing the right thing, then you have the power to vote them out of office. But it's time to be able to elect someone who's really progressive to office, and that can be able to care about our issues and not just be flaky when it's hot and cold issues, but be systemic and be on the issue of a systemic change in this country, and not be able to be swayed by your colleagues or unions or, and your race that's coming up. Because this generation today, they don't care about none of that. You do wrong and you're not voting in their interest, they're going to vote for you out of office, but yet they're going to run against you. We've seen it happen here in New York City, where you had incumbents thought that they had a shoe in, and they've been progressive on some and not progressive on other issues, and now they are forced to early retirement. So it happens. It's just that you have to be able to be consistent in your voting power, because the power is really in the people.
Right. And I'll add to that very quickly. We have got to vote as if our lives depend on it, because it does. We have got to vote as our lives depend on it. Attorney generals, judges, those individuals get voted into office. And because there was a lack of voting, because there's a lack of political awareness, you get the Brianna Taylor situation. You get situations throughout the country. We have to start voting as if our lives depend on it.
Right. So let me ask a tough question. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sam. But also, we have to make sure, once again, I know I keep saying this, but we have to make sure that we're informed. Also what the Reverend just said, we vote someone in, if they're not doing, they work for you. You as their constituent, they work for you. So if they're not doing for you what it is that they said they were going to do for you before you voted them in, make sure that you vote them out. We have to start holding people accountable and realizing our power, because whether it's, with the vote, whether it's economic, we have a lot of power. At the end of the day, the world would not be able to go around without us. And I'm talking Black people, I'm talking the Black dollar, I'm talking about the Black mind, I'm talking about the Black creativity, I'm talking about, Black excellence, I'm talking about the Black person. We hold a lot of power, and the world would not be able to function without us. So we have to start holding the world accountable and making sure that the world is doing for us also what we need them to do for us.
And don't
Very
be
good.
scared to make people uncomfortable. When you go vote, if you're going to vote, take your kids so it can be ingrained in them that mom and dad, sister, brother is old enough to vote, that it's my turn when I turn voting age.
That's right.
Make them uncomfortable. Get in a van, come out with 20 people to vote, make them uncomfortable. Let them know that you guys are aware that we are aware of our rights and we are going to exercise them.
Yeah, and create traditions when you're voting. It doesn't make no sense that, here it is, Shaquille O'Neal just announced this is his first time voting. And how old is he?
Right.
So that's a problem.
Snoop Dogg also.
Look up to these individuals. That
Mike
maybe
Tyson
that's the reason why he missed so many layups when he was
Foul shots, not layups. Foul shots.
Yeah, foul shots, free throw shots. All right, so let me ask a hot question. Ask a hot question here, right? And and this is something that me and Jennings was going back and forth about. What about Black cops? What about Black cops who are out there saying that they're doing the right thing? They're the ones, they're doing good, right? And then they're calling out the white officers, and then they're not getting promoted. They're not getting, ahead, right? They're being called whistleblowers. They're being railroaded, right? What about the Black cops that are there, and then they get scared because once they say something, then they're on desk duty, right?
Well, I'll tell you this: if there's a Black cop who has a whistleblower claim and there's there, call me. I come from down south. My Southern grandmother says that if you're going to swing at me, you better not miss. And if we're going to take this case, we got to take it hard because this has to be an effort of ensuring justice. And that's a great question because you have these Black cops, people that we want to support. We want them to be successful. We got to let them know that we do care about them, not Black or anybody. If they're white, Latino, or whatever, if they're doing the right thing, we will support that. We will mobilize behind them. But you have to understand, it goes back from the micro and the macro system of where America is systematically institutionalized, where if you have the Black cop in that system, it's very hard for that individual to do what he needs to do all the time. I've worked for predominantly white law firms with 1,500 people being the only Black partner taking the good fight. That's why I'm with EEP, because we reflect what we want the social justice to be. So if you are a Black cop out there, call any one of us. And like I said, if you're going to take a swing, they better not miss.
Black cops, that's an interesting question. I think I hit it on this last week. Black cops, they must be supported, but what does that mean, right?
Right.
Because you can be a whistleblower, but you only being a whistleblower that it only protects you, right? But when you have a case of Brianna Taylor, when you have a case of Eric Garner, or something that's big, the Black cops are silent. The Black cops are silent.
But why are they silent? Is it because they have
silent.
to be, Rob?
No,
is it because they have to be? Is it because they got people like Jennings, right? Who might say something, right? Because they got to live in the neighborhood too, right? Right? And
so,
maybe they're scared. Like, are we thinking about that as well?
So it's the culture. That's what it is. It's the culture of the police department that they have something. They think that blue is a color. So because they believe blue as a color, they are nervous and scared, or they speak up when they are whistleblowers, and they do speak up. And a lot of people do stand with, and this here in New York City, I've stand with cops when they have been whistleblower and they want to be able to be promoted to certain things. But don't do it for your self-evaluation and your self-promotion. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because you understand that could have been your son, that could have been your daughter, that is not right. But when you see something inside the police department that's not right, then you speak up. That's why you have activists. That's why you have lawyers. This is why you have lawsuits and things that you can do to continue to fight and speak up. But don't be there to not say anything when it comes down to your brothers and your sisters being beat up and brutalized. And the only thing you can say is that happened, or I'm sorry, or that could have been me. No, do something about it.
Sam,
So,
I think that the culture of the police, believe it or not, has gotten worse today than it was even when I was a young man. And I'm going to tell you why. When I was young, while there was rampant racism, the police primarily lived in the communities that they police. Now you have in our New York City a predominantly white police force that lives in Nassau, Suffolk, Rockland County. They don't live in the city. And they look at the people that inhabit the city as foreign invaders or people that don't belong there or predators. And then you have your African-American police officers that are in that cultural environment where they see how their fellow police officers treat the people in the community, particularly those of color, and how they discriminate and treat them. So they're in a very difficult situation if they want to keep their jobs, if they want to stay on their job. And it's hard. But those that do speak out, again, this has to do with accountability, and it has to do with bringing the police. And in particular, this is something that the Rev and I have discussed. The police unions are a force that is corrupting criminal justice in the city of New York. Lee, you can even go into greater detail what the police union has done to the police force in Minneapolis. And they enforce a culture of hatred and racism. So you have to address that and think about what can be done so that African-American officers that do speak out are protected and they're not discriminated against and they don't lose their jobs.
Right. So Jennings, you wanted to say something.
I agree 1,000,000% with everything everyone has said up until this point, but I'm going to be honest. Like, I have family members who are cops. I have friends that I grew up with who are cops. When I have the conversation with them about a lot of these issues, or even when I notice when they enter into the academy and they become seasoned officers, I feel like they become indoctrinated to a certain extent. Where the Reverend mentioned, they fall into that blue wall of silence. I have this conversation with family members all the time, and even a lot of the cops that they do recruit that are Black, they recruit them because, often they're big, they could be intimidating, and they view them as the slave catchers that they're gonna pin to go do their dirty work. So
do you think the cops are the slave catchers too? The Black cops?
Yes.
Me personally, I've had negative experience with Black cops.
And the Black cops
think that
are
is?
worse than the white cops.
But
you
why?
can get a Black officer that can stop you, that can be more worse than a white officer.
But why is that, right? Can we talk about that? Because somebody could be scared of a Black cop, right? We're talking about, racial issues, but are we talking about NYPD? And what can we do when these things happen, right? And I think that's one of the things that's important. Jennings talked about having family members that are Black cops, but then you saying you had a horrible experience with a Black cop, right? Does that change a perspective, or do you lump them all in one?
You have to.
I do lump them all in one because I hear the same talk, the same.
So then what about this good cop, bad cop thing? If you're lumping them all in one,
it's no good. If the black cops speak up on issues that are face us, like I mentioned, Eric Garner. Where was the Black cops on Eric Garner?
Well, you just said, but Ben just said they couldn't be there on Eric Garner because they didn't want to lose their pensions.
No,
they
but
have
you
to
don't
follow.
see, as an
They
officer,
gotta follow what the pension is doing.
Right. Listen, in New York City, right, you had organizations back when years ago, where they don't even exist no more. You had the Noble, 100 Black Law Enforcement Who Care. These was Black officers that were part of organizations that spoke up about police misconduct while they were police officers. You had former city councilman James Davis, who was an officer who spoke up about what happened inside the police. That's what made him become a police officer and be aggressive with the police and the community relations because of the injustices that he's seen, that made him say, no, I'm going to become a police officer. I'm going to raise my voice, and I'm going to run for office to be able to make effective change. So these organizations, such as Noble, such as 100 Black Law Enforcement, such as National Latino Office Associations, Anthony Miranda Group, and Charles Billard from the Guardian Councils, these was officers and organizations that held police accountable. But we don't have that now in New York City. We don't have that. So we don't
why?
have
What happened? What happened to that?
What happened is because a lot of them retired. A lot of them that were part of it, some of them seek different offices. So you don't have really those like Mark Claxton, Noel Leader. You have people that ran for office. Eric Adams, the borough president of Brooklyn, he was a state senator, but before that, he was a captain. He was in charge of 100 Black Law Enforcement. So you had these organizations that had these connections and really understood it. And you don't have that now. You have officers speaking and dancing with children, and they think that that's police relations. You have them shooting a basketball with a child in the video, and they think that's police community relations. So it's bigger than just that. You got to raise your voice in the belly of the beast. And you have to raise your voice when it's time for injustice that happen. And you can't be silent. And you can't stand behind the wall of blue silence, because once you do, you have people like the unions, like Ben talked about, in terms of the racists. These unions endorse Trump because that creates the momentum. When you have unions, police unions now, to endorse a bigot and a racist, for them to be able to carry on to do it. So when you endorse someone that is a bigot and a racist, what you think the mentality of the union is?
So then that means I can't be a black cop then in New York City and do the right thing based on what you guys are saying. How can I be? I can't be a black cop. There's no way.
I don't think so.
Said no.
I don't think you have to speak up.
Be a cop. Be a cop, be a black cop, but speak up when you see injustices.
How can you speak up if my union is endorsing Donald Trump? There's no way.
You run against the union president. You organize, you run against the union president. You organize internally, get the people behind you that are progressive, and you stand up to the bigot, and you stand up for what is right. You don't be silent and just say, I'm going to just become a cop. No, you go there to be able to make effective change. Run against Pat Lynch. Organize the people. If you organize the people that's on the outside, then you got the people that will stand up for you, because we know that somebody is a racist. But if you just go there and become a police officer and to collect a check and a pension, then how the hell are we supposed to stand up for you?
Hey, Sam, do you remember what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said about silence?
Yep.
That goes to the Reverend's point.
Right.
Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Your worst enemy is the person that remains silent. Lee, why don't you tell them about the conduct of the head of the Police Sergeants Union in Minnesota and what actions are being taken to call him to task?
Well, I can tell you, his name is Bob Knoll, Knoll. He's been the police union representative for quite some time. In particular, when the George Floyd situation occurred, he drafted a very detailed memo or email to the police union that was basically a call to action. I mean, this was equivalent to stand back and stand by kind of rhetoric for the police union. He has been connected to white supremacist group. It's been widely known. When that happened, a lot of social groups went out to his house and said, no more. And now there's more investigations. However, he's still kind of in the position, but I can tell you, I believe his days are numbered. Now, I will let me see if I can even put this perspective, and I'll do a little anecdote of my own personal experience. When I was a young attorney, I was typically the only African-American attorney in larger law firms that weren't diverse at all, but me. And one day I went to lunch with the partners and everyone, and one looked at me and said, "Lee, how do you like gangster inward rap?" And I sat there as a young associate, didn't say anything. And I can tell you to this day, it's still and is internal in me of I didn't say anything. I mean, it is one of the things that I still have kept with me. Now, over the years, there's been similar incidents working at these law firms. Whether you're a cop, whether you're an attorney, whether you're a teacher, we have got to start standing up to this racial inequality, because it has been the fabric and the hurt of why America and the United States has not moved forward, has not gotten out of the dark ages. This bad blemish that we have, and I'm using that term very nicely, is the single most detrimental factor of why the United States is not moving forward. People have died over it. The country is still divided. We are divided. It's never even become more clear when my wife is from Mexico, and she was born in Mexico, and she still is grasping the fact that in Mexico, whether you're Black, Lebanese, or whatever, you're still Mexican. They don't call you Lebanese Mexican. They don't call you anything else. And so here, her going to the DMV where she has to pick, something American or Latino American or whatever it is, there's no concept. And that just goes and feeds to this divisiveness. But to Ben, to Reverend McCall, no matter what position or platform we're in, we have got to stay out. We cannot sit silent, because if we do, you got to think of this. It just adds another 10 years of more suffrage if we don't speak. And if you are a Black cop, if you're a Black attorney in that world and you don't speak, you are not ensuring justice. As a matter of fact, you are the antithesis of justice if you don't speak up. And that's not what a cop and the oath is for. And that's not the oath that you've taken.
Right. So one last thing I wanted to bring up before we wrap up our session today: stand back and stand by. Is that what the president said, or what was the statement?
That's what I heard.
That's what he said. That's what he said.
What does that mean, right? Because a lot of people heard it. I feel like people just went over it. Yeah, go ahead, Jennings. Like, what does that mean, right? And as people in this country, like, what can we take from that? What can be done?
So this is exactly what that meant, right? In this season, you see KKK, you see white militias mobilizing. He was speaking to his base. That exact quote, what I think it means is when you go, like, for instance, if you're a licensed gun owner and you go to the gun range, or you go to gun shops looking to acquire guns or ammunition, anytime I go, I see Trump supporters, and they make it known that they're Trump supporters. You go to acquire firearms and ammunition now, you can't find any, because his base, they've bought most of it. So they're clearly preparing to act out on November 3rd and after. They know something that a lot of us don't. So that's what he was speaking to.
What do you mean by act out?
Said what he said.
Be clear, Jennings. Talk. What do you mean by act out? What does that mean?
Personally, I personally think we're in for a race war of some sort. Even last month, July and August, there was over 11 million firearms sold in America. When you go to gun ranges or gun stores, most of the time you see majority people who make it known they are Trump supporters. When you go to certain rallies in Louisville, Kentucky, in Massachusetts, in New York, the way they aggressively antagonize Black Lives Matter supporters, police, they come armed, they come aggressive, and they make it very clear that they're willing to take this to the extreme to make their point known. So when he said what he said, based on what I've been seeing, whether I'm at a rally, based on what I've been seeing when I go to the gun ranges or go buy ammunition, and the tone and the vibe that they're giving off, those are the people he was speaking to.
Hey, Sam, look what just happened in Michigan. Look at the indictments that came out in Michigan. And let me make this point, if it's the only point I have left to make. When you saw the protests of the armed militiamen in Michigan, dressed in camouflage, aggressively in the faces of the police officers with their assault weapons, talking about overthrowing the governor of the state for enforcing social distancing and wearing masks and protecting people during a pandemic, not a single person was arrested. Now, I want to know, Sam, if that was you or that was the Reverend or that was Lee, if any of you would be on this program with me today. The answer is no, because you would have been arrested and been put in jail. Those same people, the President of the United States said were patriots. They were trying to liberate the state of Michigan. This week, we find out that there was a plot to kill the governor of Michigan. What makes you think what Jennings just said isn't what they're plotting, isn't what they're thinking, and isn't what they think is their idea of justice in America today?
Absolutely. So when I hear a fascist president and a racist president and a bigot president say those things, it reminds me of two things. One, from a perspective of dealing with police all my life, is dealing with the fact that when police officers across the country, when they are invading any type of hostage or any type of using excessive force, they say what? Stand back. They say that. Because why? Because they're about to unload so much ammunition on whatever the situation is.
That's right.
And that's what he basically is telling his base. Hold on. Just wait. Because something is about to happen. Also, what brings it to my perspective, and which a lot of people don't even think about this perspective, is that he is saying basically to be able to get ready. Because the next question that they asked him, the reporter asked him, is that will he be able to give up the seat if he's
not going
doesn't win?
Nope, he's not going to.
Not even Pence would own it.
Right.
So,
not going
so
to.
what
The evangelical.
Like, hold on, just wait till after November 3rd. Whatever happens, we're going to get ready. And it's gathering up his people. It's gathering up the police. It's gathering up his base. It's gathering up to everybody who thinks that he, quote unquote, is doing a great job in this great city called America.
And you can't minimize what Jennings said about the purchase of firearms in America. Beginning with when Obama was elected president, the Republicans have been saying nonstop, with the blessings and the backing of the NRA, they're coming to take your guns. The fact is, more handguns, more assault weapons have been sold these past years since Obama was president, and now even more than Trump, than ever before. No one is taking your guns. They're arming themselves so that they're ready for when they get results that they don't want to accept. You couldn't be more right, Jennings.
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, this is great. This is phenomenal. For all the people who are out there, I wanna open it up for our last points. If I have a civil rights issue at my job, if I feel like someone is targeting me wrongfully, if I feel like, I was in a car and they told me to come outside and I was thrown out of the car, and I fell on the ground and I scratched up my arms, and I had nothing to do with anything, or my face got scratched up, right? Or a friend of mine, they said he had drugs in the car. They pushed him. They broke his arm. What do I do? For all the people that are out there viewing this program, like, what do I do if I feel like I've been wrongfully accused? If they took me to the precinct, they told me I'm going home, but I ended up they interrogated me for hours. What do I do?
Well, brother, you know the answer to that. You call me, you call Lee Hutton, or you call Keyonte Sutherland, and we will get justice for you, because we won't be quiet and we're not scared. You know
That's
that.
right.
But seriously, you get in touch with a lawyer, you make noise, you get in touch with your local politicians who understand the issues, you go public with it, and you make sure that that issue is addressed. But you have to make them pay for it. The best way to make them pay for it is to call someone like us.
And I'll even add to that, just think about just simple concepts. When a cop pulls you over and he comes to the car, how fast do you think you were going, he says. It's our normal reaction to either say, I don't know, or I'm sorry, maybe a little over the speed limit. Well, what you've done is you just admitted to a crime, okay? So understand that we are taught to cooperate. We are not taught to talk. You have the right to remain silent. Don't do anything until the police come there. Yeah, I don't care what they do or what they say. You say, I won't talk until an attorney's there. Start teaching our kids that. I mean, we've seen the Central 5 issues. Those circumstances are happening today because we really don't understand. And what we want to do in our natural reaction is to kind of talk our way into something or out of something, and that's not the best motive, because when the cop pulls you over or comes to your house, his mentality is to find evidence of your crime. He's not there to be talking out of what you think you didn't do or did. He has his agenda. Your agenda is in the reverse. Make sure you don't give him the evidence or anything to look forward, the probable cause to move forward. So, make sure you have a lawyer. You have our numbers on the screen. Put it in your cell phone. And I think we should do more of these talks so people understand what their rights are. But the right to remain silent is so important, and you can see in a lot of videos. A lot of times we don't do that. We think we got to talk, and that's not the best agenda for you.
Well, I have always encouraged people, and this is just in the last 7 years. I've done a ton of workshops on terms of what to do when you stop by police, because we had a crazy problem here in New York City regarding stop and frisk. But since then, what I tell folks is when you are being stopped by the police, the first thing you do is two things. Not one thing, but two things. One is that you take out your cell phone and you start recording.
Absolutely.
If you can't record, you scream to somebody else, take out their cell phone to record, because it's the pictures of the truth will tell the story. Yes, some officers have body cams, and yes, they have that to be able to do that. But now you have to be able to wait to be released. But no, you have your own narrative by recording it. So you record. You don't have to say yes, sir. You don't have to say yes, ma'am. We're not in the South anymore. You can say yes, police officer. You can say yes. What's going on? And they have to answer you. If you don't, you can refuse and ask for an attorney.
Hey, Rev, before you get to the second point, let me just add one thing with the body cams, because you're so right, getting somebody recorded. Do you know in Minnesota and most other states that while body cams are being worn by police officers, they're not necessarily required to turn them on? So don't assume that their body cam has the evidence. They can get distorted. They're on their chest, and they do a good job of kind of maneuvering. So you only hear the voices, but you don't see the action. So Reverend McCall, I just wanted to jump in and say you're so right on that.
That's right. I mean, you need your own evidence. You have to be able to have representation regarding a video to represent you, to be able to contradict. Many cases, if you don't have the video, 9 times out of 10, you have to be able to prove your case. You got to prove it to an attorney that it happened, and you got to prove it to the police and to the public that happened. So you want to be able to have your own evidence, say, hey, I have video of this happen, and then we can be able to fight for you once you have that information. The second thing that you must do, the third thing rather, is you can't talk too much. Like Lee said, sometimes is that we talk too much. We try to negotiate with a cop. No, you don't need to negotiate with no cop. Cop has one objective, is that to be able to enforce the law. That's it. You have to know what the reason why he is caused to be able to stop you. And only two reasons that he can stop you is for a reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Those are the only two reasons why they can be able to stop you. For anything else, you don't have to let them in your house. If they knock on your door, you can talk to them from the peephole. You don't have to let them in your house. You don't have to be able to open your door. You don't have to do anything of that nature at all. They are violating your rights if they come into your house. You invite them to your home. You don't have to let them volunteer ask you for a swab in your mouth. Say, we're investigating the case. We want you to come down to the precinct. We just want to ask you a few questions. No. If I'm not arrested, then you are not able to do anything with me. And a lot of people need to understand that, because people say, well, I don't got nothing to hide, so I'm just going to go.
Right.
No, you don't have to. Because guess what? They will try to be able to get you, to make you feel comfortable, to be able to tag you on to something that you did 30 years ago, or because you are connected to somebody else, they try to get you to snitch on that person. So just different tactics that the police use, that they be able to feel that, oh, we got them, so we got to be able to hold them responsible for something. So just know what you're getting yourself into, and know what to do and know what not to do.
Right. Keyonte?
Yeah, no, just to add, I mean, pretty much I was going to say sort of what the Reverend said, and I don't think he mentioned, just once again, know your power. You can get names, you can get badge numbers, you can request, if they say they have a warrant, you can request to see it. These are all things that the officers have to do and have to comply with. So we don't have to, you know, I know it's hard for me to sit here and say, like, don't be fearful, knowing what's going on with all of these unarmed and innocent people being killed, even, you know, while they're in their homes at the hands of the police. But at the same time, they are people. They're people just like you and I. They aren't God. They aren't, you know, they're human beings. And at the end of the day, they have to answer as well. So you can record, you can ask for badge numbers, you can ask for names, and just understand that they have to answer to that as well. So when you request a badge number, when you request to see their badge, they have to comply with that. So make sure you also get that information, because that is also important.
Wonderful. So thank you so much to everyone who joined today. Thank you so much for EEP. Jennings, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to say this out loud while I'm around all of these brilliant people, and we have a platform. Black people, do your best to run 2 or 3 miles a day. Acquire firearms. Have cash in your house. Tell your loved ones you love them all the time. Go to therapy. I got back into therapy. And what's today's date saying?
The 10th of October.
Okay, so remember I said this, right? I was in high school, and I remember the Bush-Gore election, and a president wasn't declared for like 2 or 3 weeks. This election is going to be that on steroids. Okay, so Black people and our allies, let's be prepared to move accordingly. I'm going to say that.
Right.
Be prepared to move accordingly. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming on. Huge thank you to EEP, and for, you know, bringing all of the sharpest minds out there. I mean, we have New York. We got Minneapolis. Like, this is huge. We got the Rev as well. So we just want to say Thank you so much for coming on and sharing information to our community. This is what the Haitian American Caucus is all about. This is what the Crisis Action Center is all about. This is what our partnership is all about. We're all about making sure our community has access to resources and information that's going to invoke and promote self-development and success. That's our mission. That's our motto. The more information you have, the better decisions you can make. The better decisions you make, the better life you can live. And that's what we do here. That is our motto. So we just want to say thank you to EEP for everything. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for working with the Haitian American Caucus. Thank you to PayPal also for promoting and sponsoring social justice conversations. And we just look forward to having more of these conversations. Again, one last time, for those of you who are watching this, if you have any issues with criminal justice, social justice, malpractice, anything, right? Personal injury, right? And we're going to have another workshop with EEP where we'll talk about personal injury as well and what resources are available to you and what you can do in our next workshop. Please reach out to EEP at www.eeplaw.com. The phone number is below. You can reach out. You can reach out to the Haitian American Caucus. You can reach out to the Crisis Action Center, and we will connect you with EEP. We want you to know that you have resources. You have people who care about you, who are going to stand with you, who are going to make sure that you are protected. So once again, I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank Jennings, my co-host, who's the director of advocacy
for the Haitian American Caucus.
Black
people don't take the vaccine. Don't take the vaccine. Don't take the vaccine. Drink water and green.
Jennings, don't tell people not to take the vaccine until we see what the vaccine is, what's going to happen, X, Y, and Z, right? Let's see what the vaccine has to bring to the table
every
Hey,
day.
Jennings, I
right?
want the stuff that they have in Haiti that they take to cure everything. Bring me back that. I'll take that.
That's right.
My mom got it. I'm gonna send the package. My mom got it.
Oh man.
And always make sure your car has a full tank of gas.
That's right. That's right.
Especially
That's
after
our director of
November 3rd.
advocacy. That's our director of advocacy. And Jennings been doing this for a very long time. We've been doing marches, our protests. He's been leading all the protests and the marches that we've been doing in different communities on different issues. So please feel free to join HAC. You can join now by going to hacglobal.org/join. Join our committees, health, education, economic development, and advocacy. Join any department. We are here. Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to my production team, our executive producer, Elisha Pierre, who's in the background, backstage, who helped put all of this together. We also want to thank Francois Junti, who's also part of our production team, and Joanne Pollard, our creative director, who was able to create the flyers and the digital flyers to make sure that these programs are available and happen. Thank you so much. Just want to thank everybody. Please enjoy your Saturday. Thank you, everybody. This show has been produced and brought to you by the Haitian American Caucus, EEP, Crisis Action Center, and PayPal. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, my name is Nadia Aristide. I am the Managing Finance Director of the Haitian American Caucus-US. The Haitian American Caucus-US is a grassroots movement of professionals whose mission is to provide underserved communities with access to information and resources that will foster self-development and success. Our goal is to improve the visibility and reputation of minorities while living in the United States of America. We are dedicated to educating our community by providing essential tools that will help foster success in their personal and professional lives. We do this by focusing on key areas: education, health and wellness, business and economic development, the Gibbs J. Serafin Workforce Development Program. We are excited about building a better community with you. We have launched our new membership program today. please join us at www.hackglobal.org. And also join us on all our social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, wherever you may see us. And thanks for watching.